Hi, Nick Dogan, North State Law. We safeguard your professional license so you can get back to business. Today's question is, what is a consent order from the North Carolina Board of Nursing? So I've done another couple videos along the lines of different type of discipline, impact of that discipline. Please check out those videos whenever you got a minute, maybe after this one if you want. So going back to the original question, what is a consent order? So a consent order is a voluntary agreement entered into by a licensee and the state agency or licensing board. In this particular case, the North Carolina Board of Nursing. So an order is a legal document that directs somebody to do something. All right. Typically, if you're in court, a judge is going to sign an order at the conclusion of a case, or while the case is going on, somebody files a motion. Maybe there's an injunction or temporary restraining order. They'll put an order in place, sign it, and then somebody has to follow what is in that order. So with a consent order, you're consenting to follow something that is specified in this agreement, which is the consent order. There are things that are called findings of fact, there's conclusions of law, and then there's what's called the order section. I call it the decretal section, same thing. It's the meat and potatoes of the order and what you actually will need to follow if you're consenting to the order. So with the Board of Nursing, they do a couple different consent orders. They'll do a non-disciplinary consent order, which I talked about in one of the other videos. They'll do a disciplinary consent order, which would be a public reprimand, and do a consent order that has a suspension, probationary, a number of different ones. So they'll have findings of fact in there, and typically the findings of fact are not going to be favorable for the licensee. They're going to be sometimes pretty specific as far as what the allegations are, and I will say sometimes they're not exactly accurate. Those are the type of things that you don't have to agree with. You could say, look, I don't agree with number 7 here. Number 7 is not accurate. That didn't take place. Or they're alleging that took place. That person said that, but that's not true, 100% not true. And those are things that you can try to negotiate with and say, look, number 7 didn't happen. We're not agreeing with number 7. We take that out. I don't agree with number 5 either. I don't agree with number 9. I don't agree with number 6. And if you negotiate, sometimes they'll drop, a number of them. They might drop 6, 9, 7, and say, no, I'm not going to drop 5. Depending on what is in there on those findings of fact, maybe 5 is acceptable at that point. And I'm just using that as an example. Maybe it's, 5 definitely didn't happen, and I'd rather have between 5 and 7, knowing that neither one of them happened. I'd rather have 7 in there than 5. 5 looks a lot worse, and both of them didn't happen, but that looks a lot worse than number 7. You can try to negotiate and see what the nursing board is willing to accept as far as that's concerned. Going to the conclusions of law, that goes into what codes and or statutes were alleged to have been violated. And since it's in a consent order, it's not going to be an allegation once it's signed. It's going to be that's what was violated. Now, below that is going to be the conditions of the consent order. And that could be probationary conditions where you can't work like 7P to 7A, or you can't work at a nursing facility or at a long-term care facility, or something along those lines. That you'll be some sort of restrictions on your license. If it's a suspension, the length of suspension is going to be in that bottom portion as well. It's very, 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 very important to thoroughly read everything that is in a proposed consent order, because we've had a lot of clients that come back to us years later after they signed something without an attorney, or they've even signed something with an attorney, and they're like, man, I wish I hadn't signed that. Can I get that taken away? And the answer is no. Once you agree on a consent order with the Board of Nursing, it remains. It remains on their website, remains on the National Practitioner Data Bank, and it's not going to go away. So the biggest thing when you receive a proposed consent order is the most obvious. It's read it, understand it, and really understand that once it's signed and it's filed with the Board of Nursing, you can't take it back. You can't say, well, I thought about it. It's been 2 years. It's been tough for me to get a job. Let me get that back. Now, on the flip side of that, if you get an offer and you're like, man, I had a bad night. I know I did that. And it's the type of consent order that is frequently offered to somebody for that same exact violation, then you can accept it, you can deny it, or you can go on to the next step and have a settlement conference, or if you're already there, you could try a hearing. You run into a little bit of a risk, or sometimes a big risk, depending on what the allegation is, that you might end up with another offer that's worse. So it's really important to have counsel to explain the ins and outs of the consent order to you, what you're looking at, and then the impact of what you're going to sign. Is it a good offer? Is it a bad offer? Is it a middle of the road offer? Is there a possibility that you're going to get a better offer if you proceed in the process? Is there a possibility that you're going to get a worse offer if you proceed in the process? So those are all things to consider. And you really, whether you hire my firm or you hire somebody else, it's always best to at least have an attorney look over a consent order for you before you sign anything. Because like I said, you can't take it back. If you got any questions about this or anything else, check out our website. It's northstatelawfirm.com. We got a lot of blogs on there. You're on our YouTube channel, but check out a lot of the other videos on here. It's North State Law's YouTube channel. And if you still can't find what you're looking for in either one of those spots, then like always, give us a call or text 919-521-8810. That's 919-521-8810, and you'll get a free 15-minute discovery call with a member of my staff. I hope everybody has a fantastic day and keep taking care of North Carolina. Have a good one. Bye-bye.